Well, thank you all for joining this month's A11yTalks. Each month, we get together online to learn about a variety of topics related to accessibility. Please follow us on Twitter. We're A11yTalks, A11yTalks, to keep apprised of upcoming sessions, speakers, and other relevant information. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and to see past and upcoming talks. So with that, though, please keep in mind today's session is currently being recorded. So if you have a sense of humor like mine, please do us all a favor and just tuck that back in for the next hour. So on to the, real quick, if you have any questions throughout today's session, please make sure to type it here in the chat of Zoom or add us on Twitter, and we'll share these with Jeannette at the end of the talk. So with that, on to our main event. So whether your exposure to dyslexia is from some sort of personal experience, or perhaps just with Percy Jackson's series identifying it as a trait of the gods, this is a real challenge facing our users. So today we have with us Jeannette Washington to give us some greater insight. Jeannette is the founder of Barely Articulating and works to meet the learning needs of students who are autistic, ADHD, and dyslexic. She has a car named Coconut, which I would love to hear a lot more about, but is also looking forward to speaking in Nigeria this summer. So with that, Jeannette, are you ready to roll?
Yes, let's rock and roll. All right, so good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining me here on A11yTalks today. It is a pleasure to share with you all some of my little gems that I've learned throughout my career and to dive deeper into what dyslexia is and how you can use it as a superpower opposed to maybe a disability. So our talk this morning on A11yTalks, this afternoon, is what's dyslexia got to do with it? Our expectations today, we will develop an understanding of dyslexia, identify helpful resources for dyslexia, and I want to empower you all to investigate this topic further. As our presenter, our co-host, today has mentioned, we are on Twitter. So you can find A11yTalks on Twitter, as well as myself, Barely Articulating. And we will be using the hashtags A11yTalks or Discoder. For those who want access to the slides and to get an understanding, a visual of what I will be discussing today, feel free to follow the slides at bit.ly/discoder. It is case sensitive. You want to make sure that D is capitalized as well as the C. All right, so who am I and why am I here talking to you all today about dyslexia? So I am a former speech pathologist. I worked in the public school sector for quite some time. I worked with individuals from K through 12 who had issues with communicating. Those who had dyslexia, those who may have had Asperger's, those who may have had subtle speech impediments or dysplays, those who had articulation disorders. So within my time working as a speech pathologist, I gained a love for assistive technology devices and augmentative communication devices as well. So I really enjoyed the technological aspect of being a speech pathologist, so much so that I enrolled into a coding boot camp. I learned Java, and I learned some JavaScript, HTML5, CSS, and from that, I began to really start to create an alignment between my passion for those with special abilities and my passion for the technology industry and as it is evolving as a whole. So currently I own a company called Barely Articulating, and what we do is we go into different tech spaces and really advocate and empower those who have special abilities and try to create better communication amongst themselves, their colleagues, their employers, and to create a safe space for them to be who they truly are. So, what is dyslexia? The word dyslexia comes from the Greek word dys, meaning difficulty, and lexia, meaning language. This can pertain to reading, writing, spelling, working memory, and your executive functioning skills. Dyslexia affects 20% of the population, and it represents 80 to 90% of all of those with learning disabilities, especially in the educational sector. Dyslexic learners thrive from the use of multisensory, explicit, communicative, intensive language instruction, and they gain creativity through different circumstances. Just imagine being a student and you're unable to really grasp the concept like your teacher is presenting to you. So with that, you find hacks, you find little quirks and ways to really be able to accommodate yourself so that you can learn. Let's take a glance at this fMRI brain scan. So this is a brain scan, and brain scans generally map the brain. And so in this particular instance, it was taken from Science Photo Library. They mapped the critical language areas of someone who had dyslexia and someone who did not have dyslexia. Now we know that reading can be a complex task, even if it comes to reading code or doing any technological function. Reading is really one of the more critical performances that our brain does. So here you see the lexic reader. That reader has a stronger left brain hemisphere. And then you see the dyslexic reader. And this dyslexic reader has less of a left. You see that their left side is less activated than their right side. Our right side is going to be our more aesthetic side, and our left side is going to be our more analytical side. So you can think of it like this. Your right side is maybe like a front-end programmer, someone who works with the aesthetics, the beauty of things, the art of it. And you can imagine that the left side is going to be the back-end programmer or the back-end coder who's going to be really focused on the functionality or the server side of things. So what do you see, and does this help? Let's look at, just briefly, some of the things that can be seen from a dyslexic side of things. Okay, so the first link I have, what do you see? It was actually taken from someone's GitHub repository, and it's a link that shows you some different patterns you'll notice as you're trying to read a passage. As we may know or we may not know, dyslexia is definitely a spectrum. When you think of a spectrum, think of a band of colors that are separated by different degrees. So just like there is an autism spectrum, there is definitely a dyslexic spectrum, and you can be affected more on the severe end or more on a more subtle, lighter end of things. So with this particular link that you're looking at, where it says, what do you see? It will take you to a GitHub repository. And again, I'm going to make these slides available to everyone. And you'll notice different patterns, and it'll be very difficult for someone to read. However, this is going to be more on the severe spectrum. Now, the link that says, does this help? It's a link that I've used as an educator and as a programmer. It is called a Dyslexia Font. This font is extremely helpful because it shows unique and subtle differences between fonts, and it helps you understand how you can make fonts more readable. Because one of the more prominent myths about dyslexia is that you see the P and the Q and you confuse those, or the B and the P, and you're like, what's the difference? So does this help? That link gives you access to Dyslexia Fonts. And again, this is some fonts that'll help you really understand the patterns that you'll see between those who are reading using more of their dyslexia special ability and those who are not using that. So we'll move right along. Again, it's noontime. I don't know about you all, but I have not eaten yet. So we want to definitely get around to lunch at some point. Though this is a very helpful lunch and learn to those of you who are just joining Ally Talks today, Ally Talks. I am Jeannette Washington, and as you see with the picture I have illustrated, this is going to be where we take our notes. We're going to get some more helpful information about programmers who have dyslexia and those who don't, and we're going to just talk about it blissfully in this next portion of our talk. So I'd like you guys, as you see this illustration here, get out a pen and paper so you can take some great notes. So, programmers with dyslexia, what do you need? You need three things. You need internet filters, page simplifiers, and syntax checkers. As it relates to internet filters allow you to have no access to certain sites. Those can come embedded in your computer, like some newer computers already have Norton, but you can also add some like Net Nanny to help make sure that you don't access certain sites. Because if you're anything like me, you know that we have issues with multitasking. And those with dyslexia, 60% of those individuals also have ADHD. So that is going to cause a rift in your ability to stay on task. So internet filters like Norton or Net Nanny are very helpful, and they help you stay on task because you can't access those certain sites that you want to access while you're working on a project. Now, page simplifiers, those can come with your computer, like the Chrome extension Easy Reader or Firefox's Simplify Page. And these simply strip away clutter like buttons and ads. Because again, with that 60% of dyslexic learners and programmers having ADHD, you know that you are going to need to stay focused when working on a project. So internet filters like Norton and Net Nanny are helpful, and page simplifiers like the Chrome extensions Easy Reader and Firefox's Simplify Page will help you to make sure you stay on target. As it comes down to syntax checkers, a lot of our IDEs have that embedded or infused within them. However, when you're using some online compilers, they will have syntax checkers in there to help sure that you're structured. I use EverSQL, and it helps me compile and validate. Also, it reports errors when I am using SQL, so that's helpful for me. However, I would say just like dyslexia is on a spectrum, some of these programs rather, are on a spectrum. I know we're working on different projects, so different projects will cause for different software. So don't be afraid to look or Google up some different things, because we want to meet you where you are. So some programs and some software devices will certainly meet you where you are, opposed to others. All right, so as it relates to users with dyslexia, because we just talked about programmers who may have dyslexia and what may help them, but let's talk about those users. This is beneath the accessibility umbrella. So these, again, can help some more than it may help others. However, contrasting colors creates complementary color pairs and may be helpful for some people who have low vision or individuals who have a difficulty really comprehending what they see. Text magnifiers are basically software that interferes with the computer's graphical output, and some text magnifiers like Zoom text magnifying is also very helpful for me. I wear glasses. I also have always had an astigmatism. So when it comes to contrasting colors and text magnifiers, I find both of these very essential to me. Also, screen readers. Screen readers are assistive technology like JAWS, Orca, and they basically translate visual information verbally. So for those who are struggling to read or are struggling to really understand what they just read, screen readers can certainly help you comprehend on another level. All right, so I know we're talking about dyslexia today, but the key word accessibility was just thrown out there a couple seconds ago. So when I think of accessibility, I think of meeting people where they are. So high contrast text, who can benefit from that? We talked about color contrasting. Now we're going to talk about who can benefit from high contrast text. So people with vision loss, which can be a permanent circumstance, individuals who have cataracts, that can be a temporary circumstance, or just think about coming in from the beach or coming out from having been on the snow trails. You may have a situational blindness. So individuals with that individual circumstance, that situational circumstance, you could truly benefit from high contrast text. Let's talk about who benefits from closed captioning. Again, those with dyslexia may find that screen readers are helpful, but how about those who have issues with hearing or with seeing? Let's talk about hearing loss and how that could be beneficial as a closed caption reader for someone who, well, they can visualize it on the screen, but who may have issues with hearing or seeing. Those with ear infections, that is a temporary situation. Maybe you want video because you're on a bus, and that could be situational. But we want to make sure we consider everyone, not just only on the dyslexia spectrum, but on that accessibility spectrum as well. So who benefits from large tap areas? Those who have something as permanent as Parkinson's disease, or someone with a temporary issue like they've broken their hand or their wrist is fractured, or someone in a situational incident like they may have had too much to drink. Now let's switch things over really quickly. I hope you guys have taken lots of notes. We'll talk about the work front. Because when it comes to finding a job or finding employment, it's really helpful to consider the hiring processes that may or may not be an issue for those with dyslexia. So hiring and interviewing should showcase the use of creative challenges and performance-based tasks. So someone with dyslexia may also have a complementary ability like ADHD. So they may get a little nervous when it comes to those very rigid job interviews because they may not be able to stay focused to the question, or they may get a little anxious. So we want to definitely consider how we are allowing our interviewees to showcase their skill set. Assignments at work should involve collaborative teams that mix people creatively, so teammates can garner value from diverse navigations and perspectives. We do a lot of pair programming, so we don't want to always pair individuals who have the same abilities. Let's get creative and start pairing people with a mixed sense of abilities so that they can navigate one another to different perspectives. Finally, I do a lot of trainings, and I think that the training should be designed to benefit the diversity of thought, and not just the training should not just focus on one typical learning style. All right, so you are not alone. I know the anniversary of Michael Jackson's death was, I want to say, yesterday. So I thought this was quite fitting to add here to our slide. A lot of times when you are facing different abilities, you can isolate yourself. And you may feel like you are the only one at work or in the classroom or just amongst your friends in life who are dealing with or coping with these abilities. However, I want you to know you certainly are not alone. Here I've compiled a few familiar faces, and these people have been identified as having some level of dyslexia. They're on some level of that spectrum. We have Jennifer Aniston, we have Tim Tebow, we have Will Smith, and this familiar guy over here, Steve Jobs, and also Octavia Spencer, who, if you recall, she just put out a movie called Mama, which was really, really, really scary. But it's one of the newer box office movies. So these are some of the individuals who, like yourself or like others you may know, who have these special abilities, like dyslexia. And they're obviously, with the extraction of Steve Jobs, who is no longer with us, they're obviously thriving in their places of employment or within their spaces. So what can we do? I will say that you all should give yourselves kudos for being here today, for showing up. That's one of the main things that you can do as it relates to dyslexia, getting a better understanding of it, understanding how you can start to utilize some of these different tactics within your place of employment or within your lifestyle. You need to show up. I know I'm not the only one that is providing a webinar today. There'll be webinars all summer. You need to be there. You need to understand what it is you can do or how you can be of assistance to those who may have dyslexia. So you also want to learn what works best for your situation. As we looked at closed captionings, we talked about screen readers, page simplifiers. Everything won't fit your particular case or your particular situation. So that's why it's important that we have trial and error. I've given you a couple things like Net Nanny, JAWS, Chrome extension, Easy Reader. Those are just a few of the many software media machinery that applies to what we can find that works for our particular situation. So it's all about trial and error. The last thing you can do as far as our next steps is be the change that you want to see. So you need to be that advocate. If it's for yourself or if it's for one of your loved ones, you need to be the one advocating for more accessibility tools. Finally, I bring you back to our live tweeting information so you can have access to that. You have my info, Barely Arctic. You have A11yTalks. Right above that, we also have hashtags, Discoder or A11yTalks. Ally, I keep calling it Ally. I want to say Ally so bad because I know that in order to be in this field, in order to be a supreme advocate, you also need to be an ally. So I continue to say that, but I know it's A11yTalks. So bear with me, you all. However, finally, to have access to the information that I provided you today, you see that I have a bit.ly link that is Discoder. It is case sensitive, and you can look at these slides on your leisure time or at your leisure.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeannette.
Thank you.
We do have a couple of questions.
Excellent. Those are questions.
In regards to the text magnifiers, when they're zooming in what way do they benefit the user, whether they be from the professional side of you or the user standpoint? How does this help the user? Is it just, does it actually help kind of put the pieces back together for those on various parts of the spectrum, or is it, or does it serve a different purpose?
So text magnifiers, as I related to myself, because I know I have astigmatisms, they help enlarge the information that you are viewing so that you won't be putting so much stress and strain onto actually acquiring or retaining that information. So it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to look at what you're seeing and put the pieces together with those words. Because some of our dyslexic learners, they have issues with visualizing those patterns that they're viewing. So if the screen is enlarged, it may be essential for them because it may help them see the information better. Now, there is a lot of debate about whether dyslexia is a visual ailment opposed to one that is neurological. But with that, there's so much data that refute the two. I would just say it's a safe bet to just utilize a magnifier if it helps you, because some people it may not assist.
Makes sense. And you were talking about that trial and error and finding out what works best. Is there a particular roadmap you'd recommend, or an online resource that would have a roadmap of, maybe you try this first or that first?
So there are some really good roadmaps out there that I've been utilizing, but I can't say that I found them in any particular order. I've just been on Google one evening or one day, and I'll put in, something about accessibility or internet filters, simplifiers, check amazing different links, and you can find yourself almost in a loophole because you'll see so many, but it'll give you the opportunity to try different tools out. So there's nothing that exists that I know of particularly that just lists everyone out. Maybe that's something I can create.
Wonderful. Dennis had a question about high contrast is good generally, but too high can be bad for others,
Yes.
or for some users, presumably. What's best to provide for customization so the users can customize their own tools? Are there any add-ons or anything of that nature to allow them to adjust that?
There are some extensions that I've found helpful. I was reading an article on Livewire. So if you all look at Livewire's platform, they have some articles about complementary color pairs and how those work. I don't think as far as there is an app that could show you the differences. I know some are embedded in phones. Well, they will let you look at like the inversions of colors, and you can see from there whether it's helpful to you or to your client or not. However, I think that this field is burgeoning so that there's a lot of room for these things that we're brainstorming about to be created.
Okay, cool. Dennis, if you have a follow-up question, please go ahead and type that in. I'll just, I think I have one more here. It says, you've mentioned a few times that this could be looked at as a superpower, and we've all heard the different benefits of other things that are otherwise considered challenges, such as being on the spectrum, the attention to detail, and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. What would be some of the superpowers we can highlight?
Okay. All right. So I'll do it like this. We'll do a pro and a con, a strength and an opportunity, basically. So those with dyslexia oftentimes experience poor working memory, but on that same spectrum of things, they can have strong visualization skills. So if someone was having a hard time recalling newly acquired information, let's say you're in a training and you're learning a new technique on how to work effortlessly with your code, you may have a hard time recalling that. However, with having dyslexia, you are able to create visualizations, and you may find it helpful to create a diagram, and that'll help you tap back into your memory of the new information you found. So again, poor working memory versus strong visualization skills.
Okay, great. I'm just double checking every place else. I'll put that note in there in a moment. Mm-hmm. Just want to double check Twitter real quick. And I think those are all of our questions today. Did you have any closing thoughts you wanted to share with us, Jeannette?
I first and foremost want to thank you all for having me on this platform, and I appreciate those who came out and those who will be listening to the replay. I do what I do because I am so passionate about learning more about dyslexia and how, as programmers, we can better ourselves to retain the information and to really thrive in this tech industry. So that's kind of it for me.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you. In truth, Jeannette reached out to us with this topic. And if you ever have a topic that you are as passionate about as Jeannette is clearly about this, please reach out to us. We are very inclusive. We want to hear your thoughts, your knowledge, your point of view. So with that, make sure to check us out on, again, Twitter and YouTube. We'll be posting this video in a few days if you want to share it with any of your colleagues. And thank you again, Jeannette. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.